Hello guys, Captain Vapa here. Um, I've been playing a lot of Total Conflict Resistance recently. It's I mean, if you're clicking on this video, you probably know what Total Conflict Resistance is. But basically, it's this kind of campaign-based Mountain Blade three-man guerrilla warfare-like game that is in early access and is seeing a lot of development. And I have been playing this game since the demo. I back in the day even used to use cheat engine to get to play the demo more than the 1 year. So I was playing a lot of it during the demo times, and I've been also playing it now as it develops and as the updates drop. And I've been very happy with the development so far. But with that all being said, I feel that the game has like a very steep learning curve, and I see a lot of YouTube. I mean, there isn't much YouTube content, but from what I can see on the forums and in YouTube, there is a lot of people. There are a lot of people that are struggling with the game right now because a lot of the things aren't explained. There's a lot of it's not really clear how you're meant to approach the game, how you're meant to approach the battles and the tactics and the management, and dealing with the bot in the campaign map as well. So I decided to do these kinds of series that don't really cover the game basics that are already explained in tutorials and guides and by the game itself in tooltips, but really focus on kind of just best practices and tips on how to use certain um, units or aspects of the game to the best advantage, or to review kind of very obscure facts about the game, the questions that you might be asking yourself that kind of um, there is no answer except for playing the game and getting a feel for it and testing it out annoyingly, because there's also no creative mode, just playing a game up to a point where you feel comfortable, and then doing a bunch of saves and changing the options and the difficulties and the weapon options to see how things perform. So, for example, things like, how does the AI do, what kind of effect the uniforms have, and things like that. So this is all I want to cover in the following tutorials. I hope that I really do hope that they help new players with the game and help people kind of get over that learning curve so they can have fun with the game, because the game can be extremely fun. It is just that if you don't know how to play it, it can be also really frustrating. And I want people to not have to deal with that and to avoid the frustration, so that more people are happy with the game and it gets the praise that it receives. That being said, the last time I recorded videos was a lot of years ago. It was definitely before it was legal for me to drink, so I can't say I've recorded a lot of vehicles during my adult life, and it's a learning process on that front. I hope that it isn't too annoying with cuts and maybe me taking a lot of time to explain things, and I hope it gets better as we go along. But yeah, I'm definitely happy to make this content for you, and I really hope that you find it educational and it gives you the ability to enjoy the game more. All right, and welcome to the game, guys. The first few tips that I'm gonna do are gonna be just like your setup tips and general tips that you would consider at the start of the game, and I'll answer some of the more um, important questions that are not explained by the game. So you can play any campaign you want. Um, Generally speaking, everything that is mainland island west, which is this part of the factions, is gonna be Western type units. Then everything socialism, communism up to here. From here to here is gonna be communist units, and then you're gonna have your rebel slash monarchy unit tree. Um, the tree is just a preference. I'm probably gonna have other either other videos or other tips in this video that cover the different factions, but for now it doesn't matter too much. We can just choose one. And then here you can look at the difficulty. Now, I haven't found the difficulty to change much. From what I have found out, it's not supposed to change the AI behavior too much. But I found that realistic or expert is, generally speaking, way better than easy and medium. I have played a lot of games on easy, and I know a lot of the people in the community run easy difficulty. But in my experience, realistic has been just fine. And maybe it's just a placebo, but I found that it actually, on both sides, it makes it more interesting. Um, so yeah, the difficulty also affects the campaign AI. So I feel like this is most of the change in difficulty here comes from the campaign AI, and I think you'd have a lot more fun running realistic or expert, just because once you take over a few countries and kind of build up, you would still want the game to be somewhat of a challenge. Now, number of troops at the start, personal preference. This is gonna determine how many people you get at the start of the game. I keep it at low because I like to retrain my troops, and I also don't want the game to be mixed up with assets that I like, military assets that I can produce for years later. So if your campaign starting year is early, 2024, then obviously, like, if you had very high troop level and troop quantity at the start of the game, it's gonna kind of be very disappointing for a while because you wouldn't be able to replenish any major losses on that front. So I personally like to keep them on low. Now the important ones here is the amount of resources at the start and the number of the rebels. Now rebels can be very annoying, and I'm gonna show you the metric that you can kind of use. I personally keep them at low because they're more of an annoying than a difficult mechanic. But obviously if you put them on very high, you're gonna have a lot more battles to do, especially early on when you can't keep your citizens as happy as other times. This will also affect how many spawn um, in the bot provinces. So in general, like very high would um, swarm them up with rebels sometimes. So I personally keep it at low because for me the rebels don't really contribute that much right now. And if you manage your city, probably you're gonna be fine. Uh, the amount of resources at the start, now this is an interesting one because, I mean, first of all, I'm gonna tell you right now, I would personally say that it's very high or high. And the reason is that the bot generally doesn't manage their territories very well. And so once you start capturing the territories, they're not gonna be very developed. The bot, generally speaking, spawns in stuff and has instant research right now at this stage of the game. So they wouldn't be constrained the same way you are in terms of the market and using the resources. And so if you wanna really have an advantage of taking a country, I would suggest getting high or very high starting resources, because that means the bot countries actually get very high starting resources. And so once you capture the country, because they're not using those resources, you're gonna get their resources, which are gonna be a lot. And that makes it way more rewarding, especially early on, to capture countries. And you're gonna have a much more fun experience, I would say. On low, you need to build up a lot. You need to build up, and when you take an enemy country, you'd actually just be stuck up with a bunch of provinces that you'd have to feed, which, and they wouldn't be developed, so you'd have to also develop them. Not a great fan of this, so usually I keep it on high or very high, so there's a reward for taking over a country. Campaign starting year, this affects the research tree. I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, moving on to the game settings. They're actually not going to be displayed when you start your game. These are like more options that affect every game that you load up. So you just go to options and then gameplay. And this is where you actually can, I mean, you can always change the difficulty here, but there's also things that are hidden in here that are not gonna show in the starting options, so some people might miss them completely. And the number of units, my advice is to keep it at 200 because this is gonna allow both sides to bring the maximum amount of assets, and it will make the game more enjoyable. But obviously, you can adjust that so that it runs well on your computer and so that you are happy with the performance. Highlight the enemy. I would not disable that. Some people keep it on hover. Some people keep it on always. Um, an important distinction to make is that not everything that you're gonna it's not a very reliable system. So not every enemy that you hover over is gonna be actually highlighted, and even if you keep it at always, maybe half the enemy squads at long range wouldn't be detected. I personally like to keep it at always because if you play in an RTS mode, you want you want to see which infantry squads are getting spotted by your infantry. So this highlight representation is more of a spotting mechanic, let's say. This means not only on your hover, but anytime any of your squads finds an enemy squad, that enemy squad is gonna be highlighted. I feel this keeps you more tactically aware and gives you a better overview, but I will definitely not keep it off unless you want a really challenging experience because God knows the bot doesn't keep it off and detects you from longer ranges. So, and they have pretty effective camo sometimes. Some factions will go for some really obvious camo, but for the most part, yeah. Um, and then the other thing that you want to consider here for sure is to go on easy resource management. The what resource management does, very importantly, it auto splits food across your city. If you click the resupply button or buttons really on your battalions, it will um, resupply them from a global pool of resources and a global pool of ammunition. What it won't do is resupply them from a global pool of equipment. So if you have weapons, tanks, boats, you name it, anything that your soldiers need to kind of physically equip, or you need to create the battalion from, this, like also uniforms, this won't be shared, but every other resource will be from a shared pool. I have, I think that the game right now does not have a good UI to support kind of going above medium in this regard. Even medium is bad. The reason is you can kind of with the repeat weekly function automate food deliveries, let's say, but in general it's just gonna make your game a lot more pain in the ass, and you would have to set up for every single new province supply lines, which might sound fun at first, but when you grow bigger, it actually becomes kind of impossible because the game currently does not give you the tools to do that. So my advice is keep it on easy. It will allow you to keep resupplied. It will allow you to not worry too much about food distribution and just play and enjoy the game. Now let's talk about managing your empire, which is pretty straightforward. I don't have too much to say on that. I mean, obviously I have construction, but whatever the buildings say over there, that's what they do. So you guys feel free to experiment. I would say in general that you are going to get a lot more ore, and so don't keep ore processing facilities. So you know, don't keep iron plants, iron factories at the same level as your iron mines. If you need iron, just convert all of your stockpile. Focus on converting all of your iron ore stockpile into iron. Worry about having iron ore later because you can buy ore on the market and it's twice as cheap as buying processed goods, and so you'd always be better off being short on ore than being short on the processed ingot. So I would say feel free to go over um, your ore production in your kind of factories that you build. Other than that, pretty straightforward. For best value, I would say either tobacco or fish. They sell for some reason for quite a lot of money. So if you want to make money by selling shit on the market, this is kind of your go-to, I would say. It's reliable. I think we have some fish up there, if I'm not mistaken. And you can no, it's not up there. It's maybe it's here. Yeah. So if you go here, go world market, you can see absolutely insane amounts. Like 1,000 units of fish would sell for $5,000, and fish you always overproduce, you almost never lose. Absolutely crazy. Um, so this would be my advice for you. Another advice would be to early on you start with gold. Feel free to sell it if you need the money for construction, because gold is a very late game resource and you'd be capturing a lot of gold ingots that the AI isn't using anyways when you start capturing your first countries. So this is all I'm gonna say right now about construction. I might do like a build, like early game build video, build order video later, and we're gonna go over all of the considerations on how to manage your resources, your construction, your research, and your armies in the early game. But yeah, these are my general tips around construction. Other than that, feel free to experiment. I think it's pretty straightforward. The buildings just do what they say they do. Okay, now for the more obscure things, you have political power, authority, dictatorship, and stability in your region. Political power and authority right now do nothing in the game, so far as I can tell. They're placeholders for mechanics that are gonna pop up later down the development. However, dictatorship and stability definitely do. So there are two things that really cause rebels reliably in your settlements. So if you fix that, generally speaking, rebels will never spawn, and these are dictatorship and stability. Dictatorship, um, you can think of it as public order due to repression if you've played Total War. Um, yeah, or just think of it as garrisoned units. This is all that dictatorship is. For example, we can see right now that we have one. If you hover over, you'll see if you have any issues. So right now we will say, well, one town that we have is not controlled. This is probably. I'm actually not sure where that would be. Let's see here. Betting is one of these ones. Can we click? Let's find it. It's this one over here that is apparently not controlled. This might be just because the game loaded in. Yeah, okay, now it's fine again. So if everything is fine, you can hover over every settlement, you will say law and order established, and you wouldn't get any settlement displayed here. This basically means that you just have sufficient garrison to maintain the public order in the town, and this will slowly, if you have sufficient garrisons across your empire, build up to 100 and prevent most revolts. Stability, on the other hand, it actually gives you a good tooltip here for it. It says police detachments in cities, but that actually more affects dictatorship than anything. However, what really affects stability is having enough food for all your settlements, and then the luxury goods boosted up to like 100%. The luxury goods are like alcohol and cigarettes. Cigarettes are not displayed actually, so I know where I produce my cigarettes, which is right here. If you hover over, you can see that in my country right now, I have a total of 34,000 cigarettes, and they are not displayed on top. So this is something the game does. So it's really hard to gauge how much cigarettes you'd actually need um, to produce. So my tip would be produce up to a point where you can go get one of your battalions, quick resupply, and they'll get full cigarette supply. This kind of is an easier indicator, I feel. Yeah, you don't. If you play with my recommendation with easy logistics, the food and alcohol and everything will get automatically distributed. If not, you'd have to manage your food, which is definitely a giant pain in the ass. But in that case, you would need to, let's say, move the cigarettes. So you would need to calculate how much is the food intake, how much would be the corresponding alcohol intake, or the corresponding, bread, whatever. Then you need to go to a province that produces bread. In this case, this province here for us produces bread. You need to select the bread, choose a location, and then kind of match the weekly consumption. For example, Viveros here consumes 28 weekly, so you'll get a bit of buffer. You'd say, let's say 35, and then you go repeat weekly, send, and then it's automated. You don't need to worry about it. However, you can imagine once you get plenty of settlements, you need to produce food from different places, gather it at a few central depots across the country, and then ship it out. It becomes a nightmare, and that is why it makes it really hard to actually keep your stability no matter how much you produce. That is why I would suggest to keep on easy logistics, and then you don't need to worry about it. And the main reason is stability over here. Other than that, I would suggest keeping one central city hub where you would get all of your weapons, all of your like gear, equipment, uniforms, and things like that. And this one city is there so you can train your troops. In this game, I actually have two cities. One is for training troops, and the other one is actually stacking the militia with the vehicles. And I have a reserve battalion just for my vehicles. And as they pop out, I equip them. I click the resupply button, the rearm button, and the resupply button to keep them fueled up and supplied. And then if I need to add vehicles, I would or replace vehicles. This is a really fast squad. It has almost no troops, super motorized. So I would just, send it wherever it needs to be to whichever battalion requires support. And then I would give to that battalion whatever vehicle they require. Yeah, I think this is it for the management of your cities. I don't think there's anything else that you really should consider. It's pretty straightforward. If you don't keep logistics on easy, it's still a nightmare, even though it's pretty straightforward. But this is the way it is. These icons are going to be flashing constantly, so obviously research is free. If you have anything, research it. If you don't have any construction slots, or you don't want to construct anything particular, don't feel obliged to just keep it flashing. I'm really sorry for the people that have OCD, but yeah, production will always flash because it's very, very, very unwise for you to be constantly draining your resources producing landing vehicles. And right now you cannot cancel production, so you would have empty production slots, and especially on ports, and this means production will always be flashing red. Don't worry, it's completely normal. And my last thing is that sometimes it's way easier to orient yourself using this side screen because it gives you a preview what you're producing. And once you get like 50 cities, you'd usually know the city by that one city I'm producing the tanks in instead of the name. So yeah, those are my tips for you when it comes to managing your country. That is all I have for you today, guys. I enjoyed making the video. I haven't done so in a while, and it was a lot of fun, relearning everything. And I hope that the quality isn't too bad, and that the information that you had there was good for you, and you can now go out and enjoy the game. So yeah, Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.